Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be featuring the Bourgogne, probably the most expensive steel ship in the game, I think now. Wasn't this thing like 30k? I think Stalingrad is 28. So this is actually probably the single most expensive steel ship you can buy in the game right now. Before that though, thank you guys for dropping the sub. We are almost at 80k. Last time I checked we were at something like 79.7k subs. So we're about to reach that magical 80k, and when we do, I'm gonna start working on my blind fire guide. I've already been saving up clips and I know what I'm going to talk about, but that's how we're going to celebrate hitting that magical 80k subs. So thank you very much. Moving on to this French peculiar battleship, to be honest. It's a bit different than most, mostly because, well, the health pool is really low. 74.7k health. You are by far the lowest health pool tier 10 battleship in the game. Even the likes of Thunder and Conqueror have about 83k health. But as you can see, it does have its strengths. On the other hand though, it does have 12 guns, 380mm guns. And these guns, even though they have the lowest penetration of all tier 10 BBs, 457 Conqueror used to have worst pen at long range, it has 1.8 Sigma, it has good shell velocity, and it has fast reload. And I mentioned Zao is very tanky if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, it can absolutely punish cruisers left, right and center without any issues. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes people do is that they underestimate the reload of the ship. When you run the reload module, you can get the reload down to a pretty damn impressive, is it 24.6 seconds or something similar? And then of course you have access to the reload booster as well. So ships think they're safe when they're turning out, and this ship has a habit of proving them wrong. It's stupidly fast though. It's the fastest tier 10 battleship in the game at 38.7. It was the fastest battleship in the entire game, then something called the Georgia showed up, and now it can't really claim that. But out of the tier 10s, it's still the fastest. So that makes up for the lack of health pool it has. It's worth mentioning though that it doesn't have any armor. It's got the classic French armor layout, which means 32mm all over the place, which means that Yamato there scares me because he overmatches my armor easily, and any sort of HE spammers will have little issue in farming the absolute living out of this thing. So it requires skilled hands. Any ship that is very squishy but has a lot of firepower, but has speed, needs maneuvering, which means there is a certain skill gap involved in playing the ship to its maximum efficiency. The turning circle is really not that good either, considering how much of a small ship this kind of is. The ship is fairly small with a low health pool and it's very fast. You'd think that the turning circle would be good, but it's actually terrible. It's worse than Yamato's. Yamato has 900, Conqueror has 820. This thing has 910, which almost puts it on par with Montana's turning circle at 950. The rudder shift is also not that good at 16.6. Compared to the other BBs, it is very good though. In fact, the only thing that beats it is the Kremlin that has an even better even better rudder shift, but they are very close. So in terms of handling, this thing is either it's the fastest, second best rudder shift, turning circle. It does have access to other goodies though, namely the concealment on this thing is very competitive. It's 13.2. It used to be I think 12.5 before they kind of nerfed concealment expert, but even 13.2 is very competitive, especially since all the other battleships are now sitting at around 14 kilometers at tier 10. So it is stealthy. It's also got good AA and good plane concealment, once again compared to the rest. It doesn't quite match up to anything like the Kremlin, but it does have better AA than the Republic. Significantly better AA in fact. So you're not really a prime target for carriers. And to be fair, this thing needs that advanced AA, because with this low health pool and with this vulnerability to, well, eat a lot of damage, to put it quite simply, you're obviously otherwise a pretty juicy target for carriers. But the AA helps deter them, and the speed makes you kinda tricky to hunt down the torpedoes. You also have a pretty good torpedo belt at 44%, which is only beaten by the Yamato and the Kremlin. The rest of the pack, you beat. Moving on to the guns themselves. 380mm, has multiple drawbacks, obviously. It means that you can't overmatch, well, obviously you can't overmatch any battleships, but you also can't overmatch many cruisers that the other battleships can. Something like the Des Moines, for example, if angled, can be very frustrating to the ship, because, well, Des Moines has 27mm plating, which means he can tank your shells if he goes nose in. The Germans can do the same thing as well. So, you need to find angles. You need to use that speed to find positions, angles, broadsides that you can punish. Worth mentioning is that you can absolutely switch to HE, and you can just burn battleships if they try to go nose in. When it comes to HE DPM, you are, I think, the best out of all... No, sorry, well, the Conqueror is obviously the better, but you get pretty damn close. In fact, you have better HE DPM than the Montana, for example. 36% fire chance with 12 guns, but most importantly is the fact that you have that reload booster, which means that using the HE is actually significantly more effective, because, well, if you force them to use their damage gun, well, the other battleships, they just keep farming their normal 30-second reload, they keep shooting. On the other hand, you pop reload booster, and you cut that 24-second reload, let's say 23 with AR or 22, you cut that down to an 11-12-second reload, and suddenly you're throwing out these 12 380mm battleship HE shells every 10 seconds at your target. It's guaranteed fires. It's absolutely guaranteed fires, and they won't have time to go dark before you basically have time to punish them for it. So, this ship absolutely works as an HE spammer if someone tries to rush you nose in. Doesn't matter what ship it is, even if a cruiser tries it, it's still very effective. Once again, because of the caliber, you also have a lot of HE penetration, 63mm, which means even something like a Kremlin can be burned to death by the Bourgogne. So, this ship is a series of trade-offs. Firepower, but only really against broadsides. And even when you get broadsides, the penetration is pretty lacking. The shell velocity is good, the range is excellent at 24.8. The turret traverse is, well, it's okay. It's 36 seconds. With a captain, you get it down to something like 31-ish seconds. It's pretty good for a battleship. So, the reload is fast, but the caliber is low as well. Same thing applies to the hull. It's a series of trade-offs. You're very fast, and you're quite stealthy, but you don't have any real armor, and you have by far the lowest health pool of all tier 10 BBs. Worth noting is that you also don't have any super heal. It's your bog standard battleship heal. No Thunder gimmicks, no Conqueror gimmicks, nothing special to your heal whatsoever. No Ohio gimmicks. Man, there's a lot of heal gimmicks lately. You have nothing they have. Bog standard basic heal. You gotta make use with what you have. Now, it might sound like I'm painting the ship as not being that strong, but it is very, very powerful. That ability to basically have access to this devastating firepower on demand whenever you pop that reload booster makes this thing a monster. The AP DPM on the ship is already almost the highest in the game. Oh, Korfos decided he wanted to push in. I'm not very impressed by his move, considering he spent this... I've been a bit annoyed by my team. They abandoned this entire right flank for basically no reason whatsoever. So I had to sail over here and block the enemy from just pushing in through this flank and wrecking us. And then when I'm trying to disengage because I'm under so much spam, now they decide, well, now we're gonna fight. Hey, now let's push in. Worth noting is you don't have a spotter plane, so blind firing in the ship is quite difficult. But, once again, if you know what you're doing, and, well, I will be covering this in more detail in my guide, but just because you don't have a spotter plane doesn't mean that if a Smolensk is shooting one of your teammates or shooting you, it doesn't mean that you still can't discourage him from doing that in the future. So, how do you play this ship? Very carefully, to put it simply. Mid-range is absolutely where you want to be. This thing has the potential to push in and brawl, because, well, it does have that French turtleback, which isn't really that foolproof. It's decent, but if you give too much broadside, you can absolutely be blapped in it. It has the speed to rush in when needed, but in general, you kind of want to sit at mid-range. Sometimes even long-range if they have a lot of big threats, like Yamatos, like Smolensk. But mid-range is usually where you shine. In fact, this thing and the Georgia play very similarly. They're not the best of brawlers, but if they find opportunistic situations, they can be extremely devastating. if you can catch some battleship broadside, just popping reload booster and just going ham on that broadside, even if it's not like perfect citadels you're getting, you just do so much raw damage that he will disappear very, very quickly. You can even ambush multiple battleships because you don't have to wait the full 30 seconds like normal battleship has for the reload. Popping speed boost, since my Kurfürst has decided to go in, obviously I want to support him as much as I can. I'm going to catch this Minotaur giving us broadside, hoping we can get a devastating to get rid of him. Worth noting is that the dispersion, the ships, the guns have 1.8 sigma, so they can be trollish. They can be very trollish, in fact. If you played Alsace, you know what I mean. The difference is, of course, you have better sigma, and more importantly, you have a fast reload, and you have a reload booster. So what the Bon Jovi, or the Bourgogne, what it does, it makes up for the lack of dispersion with sheer shell volume. Kind of what the Jean Bart does, really. The Jean Bart also has a habit of making up for poor dispersion by just throwing shells, enough shells at the enemy that you turn it into a win. Obviously that thing, well, it doesn't have quite as many guns as this thing, and I think the Jean Bart kind of suffers from it. I've been quite frustrated with the dispersion on that thing. Shooting Smolensk, obviously no citadels, because Smolensk. I'm surprised we even got one in the smoke. I really like to get rid of him, because if I can get rid of him, then I can play aggressively against the Kurfürst, which would open up this right side of the flank, and I can maybe even push in a cap, because, well, this team is collapsing pretty hard. We're down on points, and I don't have too much faith in my BBs, because they haven't really been playing too well, and they are basically our last survivors this game. I don't manage to get to Smolensk, he manages to disengage behind the island, so since I just saw the Kurfürst shoot and his turrets are turned away, I'm gonna take the risk of just fully disengaging here. Yep, he shot the other way, this is our chance. I was still maybe considering turning in if he hadn't shot, but he did shoot, and even worse, the Smolensk is harassing us, so we're gonna take this opportunity to turn this ship around. Reload boost, he exposes broadside, so we instantly pop reload booster. If you see any ship exposed broadside like that, that is a good opportunity for the ship to punish them. He is angling back in though, so I use the combination of the reload booster and expert loader to actually switch ammo type in just about 5 seconds. Well, it gets expanded a bit more than that, but you can see how quick it is. And here's what I spoke of. If someone tries to do this to you in a battleship, rush you. You have speed boost. You're the fastest tier 10 battleship in the game. Look at these firing angles backwards. They are actually very, very good. Combined with throwing out 12 of these shells, you're a very, very good HE spammer. You're a very good HE spamming kiter. And very rough to deal with. He tries to turn broadside to use his guns. Almost 10k HE, not to mention the fire is burning. He has absolutely no chance. Carrier tries to show up and help, but it's too late, I've already dealt with him myself. As expected, the rest of my team is once again, however, collapsing. I feel like I'm kind of, well, sailing back and forth, trying to plug these leaking holes in the hull that is our team. The frustrating thing about this Kurfürst pushing me in and not being able to secure that Smolensk is that it actually pushed me quite a bit out of position. I wanted to play more aggressive at this point, not because this ship is particularly good at it, well, it is good, but or suited for pushing into Smolensk, but simply because I'm forced to. I have to. I finally get a citadel on the Smolensk, and I managed to delete him, so I fulfilled my task on this right flank of the map, which is I killed both the ships that were here. The problem is, in the meantime, that I've won a 1 versus 2, my team on the other side has not managed basically to kill anything, and they are all dying as we speak. So I don't have time at this point to go for C. I'm tempted to go for C, but at this point I don't think we're gonna have the time to go for it. The ship is fast, but I don't think it's fast enough to cap C and still be useful on the map. Especially since the enemy carrier has located our carrier, and that guy is going to be under a lot of pressure, because whenever a carrier is spotted, well, people tend to go kind of brain dead when it comes to rushing him down. I'm tempted to go for C, but I'm seeing what happens towards B, and it turns out even the Conqueror and even the Midway is pushing in, so obviously they are going to try to kill my Hakuria. I'm still trying to win this match though. I'm still focused on winning the game. It's 2 versus 4, but we have a carrier alive. He seems to be getting some rocket strikes in on the Haragomo. It seems like a plausible game. Not an easy game, mind, but a plausible game. At this point though, I will have to close the distance significantly. The Conqueror is what, 15-16 kilometers away, and at that range the Bourgogne's penetration is less than 500. It's the only battleship that dips below 500. So we really need to be close. No, actually it's 18 kilometers away. At that range, there's literally no chance of getting citadels on him. We just don't have the penetration in the ship. So we have to close the distance significantly. Well, he has to give a flat broadside, or we have to close the distance significantly. He finishes off the Haragumo, and I'm a bit worried about the pot shots he's taking on my carrier, as you can see. So I'm gonna see if I can reset him to delay him, make him stay in the cap a bit longer, and more importantly, drag some of the attention away from our carrier on me. Because if the carrier dies, and I'm left 1 versus 3 with their carrier alive and the Moskva sailing we don't know where, this is absolutely guaranteed going to be a loss. So at this point I'm willing to just draw some of the attention away from my carrier and hope he focuses me. I still have 2 heals left. I'm on my last speed boost, but maybe we can make something happen. At this point I'm really hoping the Conqueror doesn't have his heal left, because if he does, this is going to become rough. His HE of course deals massive damage to me. He penetrates every part of my ship. I have a very low HP pool. 15k HE hurts when you only have 75k health. Aim for his superstructure, get some juicy pens in. Note that the midway is obviously in the cap. Popping my first heal. I doubt I'll have time to use the second one. And now the carrier is recalling. He realizes what I'm trying to do. This keeps our carrier alive, but now I'm getting the intention of the enemy carrier. And when you have a low HP pool, you've been eating HE spam all game, which means my AA is probably pretty toast. Well, the AA doesn't do much, and the enemy midway is a bit of a god class. I throw volley on the nose in midway, hoping maybe to get some citadels through the nose, as the Conqueror is so heavily angled. My best bet right now is to get a drive-by on the Conqueror. As long as he angles, I can't really do that much. I can't try to burn him down now, it's too late. He pops his heal as well. So this is where I know I'm gonna have to be very patient. Line up a perfect shot with the front guns. The back guns, I don't have time to wait for them. But even if he has 60k health, as long as I get 4 citadels, I can devastate him. Heals up to 60. That's 4 citadels will be enough. I make the drive-by, I line up the citadel, and I shoot my front guns. Of course, RNG decides that even though all 8 of my front guns score full penetrations, only 3 of them actually hit the citadel. The back 4 guns bounced, but that's kind of what I was expecting. So the Conqueror survives with, what, a few thousand health, and I die in the process. He survived with 4,000 health because, well, I didn't get the citadels I needed. My carrier comes in and strikes him, but at this point it's carrier versus carrier, but they got a significant points lead, and there's not really too much to talk about the game anymore. It is finished. I'm a bit sad because if that hadn't happened, I could probably just have rammed the enemy midway to guarantee the win. It would have been a Kraken and securing the win for the team with about 400,000 damage, which would have been very impressive. Sadly, we were only left with a 336,000 damage game. A devastating Confederate First Blood high caliber. 141 shells fired, 3 kills, 4 fires, 13 citadels, 8 cap resets, only 6 planes shot down. I don't even know how little AA I had left at that point, but probably not too much. Team score wise, well, it does tell a story of this game, to put it mildly. 2.6k base XP. Note that when you win games, you get a 50% base XP modifier. So this would have been a 3.9k base game, almost 4,000. Had we actually won it, and had I gotten those kills, it would probably have been 4,200, 4,300 base XP. So a very monstrous game. Unfortunately, that did not happen. On the bright side, I lost the game, but I still beat their midway in base XP. So that's always pretty satisfying. Still, a defeat is a defeat. We were unable to carry this one to a victory. Detailed report-wise, well, 141 main battery shells. HE only 19 shells, but they did their job. We burned down the Kurfürst, and most of the rest AP. 300,000 almost worth of damage just with the AP. Damage taken, well, rockets HE deals a lot of raw damage to the ship. We managed to avoid the Yamato shells, but they tend to deal a lot of raw damage to this thing as well. It simply isn't very tanky. If you're forced to go into those positions, you need to, the only way you survive is you kill the enemy faster than they can kill you. You don't try to outlast them, you don't try to outbrawl them, you just blap them as fast as you can. Because the ship doesn't have the sustainability, it doesn't have the armor, it doesn't really have a whole lot of things to keep itself alive. So that's why the main goal is to delete as soon as possible. Sadly, we did not get the deletion on the Conqueror. So this game was an example of many of the things this ship does well, which is deleting cruisers. Moskva, Zao, they ate some juicy citadels. Smolensk ate some juicy citadels. It can burn in nose-in battleships like the Conqueror. It's quite fast on the map, quite agile. I played both flanks, tried to plug the holes as my team were kind of giving up map control. I tried to shore up the map control so we wouldn't get flanked and surrounded. It has a lot of flexibility, but it also has limitations. And when you face a good player who just angles against you, it can be quite frustrating. It is absolutely a very strong ship though, make no mistake. The Bourgogne is a high-performing ship, but I would say it has a higher skill cap than most of the other battleships, simply because of the limitations that I mentioned. It's easier to play with overmatching guns and heavy armor than it is to play with positioning, agility, and guns that require broadsides. That's just the way the game works. Anyway, let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Right, as usual. Well, actually, I can start by showing you the armor layout that I mentioned. 32, 32, 32, 32, 32. HE spammers love shooting this ship, just like they love shooting the Republic. It does have that French turtleback, but as I mentioned, it is not foolproof, and if you're turning or someone has enough penetration, you can absolutely be Citadel. So don't expect any magical Grosse Kurfürst things in this thing, or any Kremlin things if we go really extreme. Module wise, consumables, you should be running, well honestly, if you can afford to have the Bourgogne for like what, 30k steel or something, if you can afford to have this one, you should be running all premium consumables. It shouldn't even be a discussion. Upgrade wise, turret survival, I've mentioned this a couple of times and I even showed it in my Iowa vid. These turrets, the French turrets, are squishy. These turrets can absolutely be blasted to pieces, especially if you catch them on the side. These are large flat surfaces. These can get destroyed permanently, easily. So you want to go turret survival. Increased speed boost duration, because that French speed boost this ship has is absolutely absurd and extremely useful. Better gun dispersion, for obvious reasons. Additional tankiness. You can go rudder shift. I think the tankiness is more important because the turning circle is so gigantic regardless. Concealment, because the concealment is actually one of the strengths on the ship. And finally, faster reload, because that's one of basically the bread and butter of this ship, the raw firepower. Captain perks wise, if you have Honor, you run Honor. For the simple reason that he gets the faster AR and the better turret traverse. Especially the AR is huge, because it just makes you a machine gun. Captain perks wise, priority target, AR, superintendent, fire prevention, concealment expert, expert loader, expert marksman, jack of all trades. This is, as you probably noticed quite a bit now, this is my standard battleship build. And that's because it's really, really good in pretty much every single situation. It's not gimmicky, it's straightforward, it's versatile, it's extremely useful. I like it. Exterior wise, signals, reduction in fire damage, improved healing, improved speed, faster consumables, and then of course I actually run the ramming flag on this thing because it's so fast, and sometimes you can just, with this ramming flag you can take out basically any ship in the game. So sometimes you just end up in the situations like that last game. I would have loved to been able to ram that midway. I could absolutely have killed him with the ram. Sadly, we were not given the opportunity. RNG giveth and RNG taketh away. As always, if you can take the time to drop me a sub, I would much appreciate it. If you can take even more time and drop me a follow on Twitch, I would appreciate that even more, because I'm grinding for 100k on both of these. If you manage to reach that 80k subscribers, then we're gonna make that blind fire guide as our next video. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later.